I want to welcome you, middle school parents and students. And again, I am Emily Collins. I'm the supervisor for secondary mathematics. And I definitely want to thank you for joining us. We'll discuss some instructional practice and some assessment expectations and just a couple of strategies and support that you can help your middle school student in order to be successful, at least in mathematics. So again, welcome. And if you have any questions, Christina will be monitoring the chat, so feel free to let me know. So tonight, let me go. I went through that really quick, right? After our session, and we'll go over three short things. Just gain an understanding of the changes in Florida standards and expectations for this school year. So there were some changes that happened throughout the state of Florida, and it's important that I say to parents and students that they're aware, so you'll know how that affects you, especially if you're an eighth grader going in high school courses, or even if you're a sixth grader going to seventh grade, either standard or accelerated course. There are some things that have changed within the progression of what we call standards. They're now going to be called benchmarks, but those are going to be some important changes in order to make sure that you are successful in the courses that you would need to eventually have you successful in your college and or career. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and just understand what your children's classrooms look like. And it's also, you'll be able to understand the resources that are available to you as a support. So I always like to start off with a quote. So I'm just going to read this quote really quick. We don't need students to calculate quickly in math. We need students who can ask good questions, who can map out pathways, who can reason about complex solutions, who can set up models and communicate in different forms. And as you see with technology, of course, we have evolved over the last couple of decades. So it turns out, believe it or not, middle school is such a pivotal transitional time in a student's life. So when the math and the cognitive problem solving strategies they have learned in earlier grades carry into that conceptual and abstract understanding of new math content. And what I mean by that, in elementary, you had a chance for our kids to work with their hands a lot. They were using manipulatives, but they tend to move away from the concrete representation. So it's so important in middle school that they practice so that they'll be able to gain the conceptual expectation that is needed to be successful in the algebra, leading all the way up to a pre-calculus or AP statistics, whatever they may take in high school. So remember that understanding of the new math content, it definitely can, create your emotional attitudes and connections towards math when you're in middle school. So continue to love math, continue to get over some of your barriers that you may have. I guarantee you with practice, it gets better. So depend upon, again, the math connections that you make in middle school years. Your students, they're either going to learn to love math, or sometimes, I hate to say it, but they don't like math after they're leaving high school. But I will say that there's a combination of in-class and online and hybrid and remote learning, and they're pretty much here to stay. So definitely embrace it and figure out how we can, get better at mastering all of the options that we have to learn now. So I always love to show this, and if you're not aware of this, but we have a lot of students, and typically our students that only have 1 year of math beyond Algebra 2, they were just twice as likely to get a college degree or a certificate. So that means that we're rooting for all of our students to take Algebra 1, even if they could in middle school, and when they get in high school, be able to take some of the courses, eventually their 11th and 12th grade year, that will allow them to be prepared and ready for that entry level when they get to college. But math skills are so important now because it has a lot to do with your judgment, your decision making, and how you communicate on the job and how you analyze data. Sometimes we learn these equations in class. Well, of course, we don't specifically use the equation at our job, but they're so important for students to understand. So keep that in mind. About 70% require mathematical knowledge to be important in most of the occupations that you're going to do in the future. And let me know if you have any questions. Just feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. And so I want to go through some expectations for this school year. Our teachers in grades 6 through 8, they're working really hard. They are being able to just kind of go in and support kids, even support some of the classrooms that we may have vacancies and things like that. So we've been a little creative, especially in the school buildings this year, to make sure that we're supporting the growth of all of our students. And so currently this year, we're continuing to use our current math standards for mathematics in all of our classrooms. So that focus is saying that all of our students and teachers, they're looking at the clarity of standards. So if you're doing a certain standard in your classroom, the expectation is that the teacher clearly communicates it, and the students, they understand what it is that they're working on, and they're able to even, state it back in their own words. We have a lot of content priorities that we're making sure many of our middle school students have the building blocks so that they're prepared when our new standards come next year. And many of our Algebra 1 as well as geometry in our middle school, sometimes it's our accelerated courses, they're double blocked so we can give the additional support that is needed for a student to be successful. So with me saying that, for the next school year, and depending upon the grade that your student is in, we go to new standards for the state of Florida. So the new standards are called Benchmarks for Excellent Student Thinking, with the acronym that is BEST. And I love it because, well, that means the state of Florida is the best. Guess we can say that. But what will happen is we started a BEST journey a couple years ago when Executive Order 1932 came to be. And the governor, they asked the commissioner of education, hey, we need some standards that are for Florida educators that were created by Florida teachers, right? And so our ELA, our language arts department, they have already started their journey with the new standards. And for us, for mathematics, it will be the upcoming school year. So 2022 and 2023 is when we will have new standards. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean your child may be tested on them, but it is so important they begin to transfer, to understand how those new standards will be laid out. And believe it or not, the language, it is clear and concise. So these new BEST benchmarks for excellent student thinking, they were written so that even a parent can read these standards and be able to understand the expectation of what is needed in the course for their child. All right, do we have any questions on that before I move on? All right, really quiet. So by now you would have received your report cards for all of our students. So report cards went out, and I'm hoping we had some good progression of our first 9 weeks performance. But some of the assessments that are so important that your middle school students are preparing for, we do have the growth measure that all math students take at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and then the end of the year. And it's really identifying, where does a student stand on grade level for the course that they're taking. So for example, if they're in 7th grade mathematics, if they were to take the beginning of the year test, it gives them a scale score and also a domain score to let them know that, hey, you know what, you are doing well. You're on grade level. You're right where you should be for a 7th grade math student. Or it may tell them, you know what, right now your math knowledge may be a 5th or 6th grade level, and that's okay. Here are some things that we recommend for you to practice in the gap while you're still doing your on grade level course practice and work. So that is so very important. I always just recommend to parents to continue to check your focus Because of COVID and different things that have changed, many teachers now are putting assignments in focus for your students to go in and pull from or to submit assignments. So I've kind of put the schedule up there for our ELA, math, and science, and we have a long way out before we test for our FSA, but it's coming, and it's always a good time in order to practice. May comes very quick, trust me. So the FSA scoring, if you are not aware of your child's score, please make sure you either ask your teacher, you can ask your math teacher, they would know, or a guidance counselor, is really up to you. But see if you can figure out where is the performance, the last performance for FSA. And then try to pinpoint what is it that your student can practice in order to improve on just some of the areas within that FSA in which they struggle. So this is currently available, and teachers sometimes, quite often, they also talk about this with students as they're doing their small group or discussion-based type of assessments and things like that. But it is a great opportunity to reach out, especially at this time now, because you have a whole bunch of time in order to put a game plan together to figure out what you need to do. All right, so here's what I'll tell you in middle school, and I won't stay on this long, but students work with numbers to the trillionth place. And I know they don't really do that, but I just want to put some emphasis on that. But they learn how to calculate mean and medians and those things there. The order of operation plays a central role as it prepares students to master the algebra that they're going to take, and then the advanced math that they would get in high school. So when we look at middle school numbers, they involve not just like whole numbers. You're going to look at fractions. You're going to look at decimals. Students will need to multiply, divide, subtract, and add all of that, including working with square roots and greatest common factors. So not only that, they learn the basis of geometry, where they begin to develop their spatial reasoning skills, and they begin to measure angles, they determine those areas, and then they also construct what we call as scale drawings. I would tell you one of the most important benefits of math classes is that, math classes, they teach you to have basic reasoning skills. So if students begin and can fluently get through much of the building blocks, they're typically strong thinkers. They typically have strong reasoning skills when it comes for them to problem solve, in other words. Students will additionally learn to estimate answers to problems, and they'll have some shortcuts of repeated patterns. And I like to say repeated patterns because that is so very important. It leads you into the strength of what algebra is about. So all of these, 5 things that I have here, it is so important that your child exits out of middle school having mastery of these building block topics here. Any questions? All right, so as we continue to dig a little bit deeper, I want to always, talk about how your child will get assessed. And we look at this and we start by building better questions into our lesson plans. Our teachers are very thoughtful with planning those lessons and activities for our students. And we allow our students to produce multiple solution routes, right? So the middle school grade, it serves as much of the formative years for conceptual understanding, and the content, they must begin to connect a little bit deeper than just solving something, back to back. So some of the questions that they will get, it won't just ask them to find the volume of, find the length of something. It will ask them to, make some predictions or represent patterns, and then see if they can come up with an equation or rearrange equations to try to figure out how to solve for a quantity of interest, right? So the questions get harder a little bit as they get into 7th and 8th grade. But typically, as we move away from this concrete, if you can see how you can look at the image, more and more we move away from the concrete representation and get more into our abstract. students increase their practice and they're able to do some of these formulas, at least for solving, because they understand it a little bit better. But these are the type of questions that your child could be asked in the classroom. So here's some keys to success in math. Always tell students just attempt to complete all of your work. If it's something that you're struggling with or something that you're not able to complete, be sure to reach out to your teacher. One of the things I always tell students, and they can start early in middle school, have a peer group of students that you can work with. Is there a group of people that you can practice your homework or your classwork, even if your teacher allows you to be in a group? It is so important that you reach out if you're struggling with something. Study your notes and review. So one of the ways, and some teachers make students do Cornell style note taking, and it just kind of depends on the expectation of the student. But look back at your notes. You didn't just go to school that day just to write down something that was in the classroom and you took it as is. You want to look back at those notes at night. And then as you're reviewing for your test or a quiz, you want to always look back at those notes in order to help you and assist you out. Attend tutoring when needed. So if teachers are doing tutoring or if tutoring is available at your school, be sure that you sign up for tutoring. Sometimes certain schools will have what they call as lunch and learns. So that means a student can, grab their lunch or so, and they can meet with their teacher, maybe during the lunchtime, or with the tutoring group leader in order to go over some important topics in math. If you're absent, make sure you email your teacher. That gives them a sense of ownership. It definitely tells them that, hey, I was absent, but I would like to do the work. So it lets them know that you're still involved in the expectation of you completing the assignment. Be sure to bring your textbook, your laptop, and all materials to class each day. And this has been very, very tough this year because I get it. It's been kind of hard lugging back the laptops back and forth. In addition to yes, you can. I'm sorry, the 7-year-old here. In addition to your textbook, you also have your laptop and other materials in order to take with you to class each day. Do your best to bring the materials needed for you to connect with the learning for that day. And then the last thing there, have a growth mindset. Always think about, I don't know it yet. Not that you don't know it, and it's okay. Sometimes we don't know something and it happens, but have a growth mindset. Be prepared to say, if I work on it hard enough, or if I ask the right questions, or if I try it again, then you'll eventually get it. And sometimes this is having conversations again with your teacher just to communicate, I heard the lesson for today. I wrote down everything that you were saying, but I still did not get it. Is there a different video I can watch, or is there a time that I can state to you what I understood about it and we can figure out how I can get the concept of it? So be willing to do all of those things there to help you be successful in math. Parents, you can support your child by just making sure you're staying involved and informed and engaged. So there are a couple ways in order to do that. Definitely read with your child. I know you may say that, man, we're kind of in middle school, we're a little bit older, but it's okay. Take a chance. If you're saying, we're going to spend 15 minutes today, you have a book, I have a book, let's take a chance to read together as a family, or let's just take a chance to have our reading moments for the day. Review and discuss their homework. Definitely ask, what was going on in the class, if there was anything that was causing them any barriers, and those things there, so it can be addressed. Communicate with their teachers, just so they know that you're present and you're involved, and you're willing to help them help your child. Attend public meetings to learn more. So of course, we always have a lot of statutes and things like that pass for the state of Florida, but being informed is so very important, so that you'll know what's going on with Duval County Public School. You'll know what's going on at your child's school. Learn about the standards and how they affect your child's education in school. So just understand what is it that they need in order to progress in certain courses. If you have a child that is interested in being an engineer, Be sure that you're able to talk with your guidance counselor to figure out what is the correct progression in order to make sure your child is going in the path that they should be. Look through your child's backpack each afternoon. So very important. So the reason why I say that, you'll see a lot of things in their backpacks. Some of the things that you should see in the problems that they're doing in mathematics, you should see real world examples. We want to have problems that connect to the real world. So that helps us to help our students, promote what students learn in English and just kind of make more sense to them, I guess. It's connected. There should be supplemental online course support for continuation of practice. So we do have, this year, we have Study Island, which provides our on grade level support. And so there may be times that your child may have additional work outside of their core textbook because they're working on certain on grade level standards in order to practice or master or reteach or retest or whatever it may be. Also, math that requires students to use justification instead of just procedural. So not only will they, ask them to box out their answers, but they may ask them to explain it in words why the answer makes sense. Is it reasonable? Is there a better answer? Could we represent it in a different type, in a different form? So those are things that you should see as well. Math homework that asks students to write out how they got their answer, and that's kind of matches with the last one I told you. And then also math homework that asks students to use different methods to solve the same problem. So one of the things that you'll see definitely, especially with Common Core, is that there are different ways in order to solve problems. It's the same route as when we go to work. Many of us may take, different routes in order to get there, but I guess the thing is we get from point A to point B. So we're always looking at the destination, but there are many, many different routes sometimes to get from point A to point B. Now, we talk to your students about taking the most appropriate and maybe the easiest and the best route, but it's not always wrong sometimes to take a longer route, right? Because the fact of the matter, you got from point A to point B. But you may see and hear, teachers talk about different ways in order to solve one of the same problems. All right, and I'll stop here. If you have any questions, definitely let me know.
I see a question here that says, are there tutoring resources available for struggling students when tutoring is not offered through the school?
That's a great question. So there are a couple things that students can do in middle school. Study Island provides, and I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of log on with your child or if this is your child, I'm not sure, but Study Island provides videos that are also attached with practice sheets where students can work on the standards that are being covered in the classroom. On top of that, if your child does not have the Math Nation app downloaded, it is also a very, very great practice. Not only do they have videos, they also have where they can assess their learning. So say a student may watch the video and then they will assess, after practicing what was just taught in that particular session for Math Nation. So there are a couple different options with the core textbook of HMH. There is some remediation type of worksheets that are available for students. And if your child hasn't asked yet, I would reach out to the teacher just to see if you're able to get a packet of practice support. Or you can email me and I can get you some things, but your preference. But feel free to email me and I'll get you some work that you can practice on, and we can help you out. But great question.
All right, she's saying, this is a parent. I will look into Study Island and Math Nation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. But feel free, like I say again, reach out to me. I can always get you pinpoint some things. Because what happens is, and I always tell parents this, your child may need two different types of support. They may need on grade level support, which means that all of the standards they're covering for the course, They're practicing from their core textbook, and they're trying to master what they're going to get assessed on. But a child may also need some below grade level, or something like we like to call it, I guess, gap practice, so that they can practice a little more of the skills needed for them to be a little more fluent in some of the on grade level work that they're doing. So depending upon what you need, definitely reach out and let me know. Um, okay, so this is what I'll tell parents and kids. Math takes a lot of practice. It's just, and I'm giving a basketball scenario because you just don't wake up one day and you get really good at math. It just sometimes doesn't happen like that. Now, some of us are naturals. It's just like with some of us with sports. I probably could play a sport because I was a sports person and I was natural, but that mean my coach maybe didn't have to work with me as hard as some of the other students, right? But for those students that are not naturals, sometimes we have to provide different support and more practice for them. So I always say, with basketball, one of the first things I always started off with was free throws. You just could not get around free throws. You couldn't get around free throws and dribbling. It was one of those things you had to do. And even when I was really good at free throws and when I was really good at dribbling, guess what I had to do again? I had to practice my free throws and dribbling every single practice. And so, what I am telling students and parents is that don't forget about those building blocks, right? You're going to learn some things and you're going to, keep packing on some new information, but it's so important to practice the basic things that you know. And I mean, sometimes if we have some students that don't know multiplication facts or adding integers, or dealing with fractions. Some of those things just need to be practiced. You get quicker at them, and then you'll end up learning it. So we deal a lot with in middle school. I always say sometimes the lesson type is going to be fluency, procedural skills, which means they learned it and they practice it. If they practice it a little more, and then they can understand it and they can understand why it works. So they practice the skill, that they acquire the skill, they're kind of in the fluency procedural stage. But then as you get to conceptual, you learn something new about math. So not only did you learn how to deal with fractions, but you learned that fractions could be part of solving in, I don't know, Pythagorean theorem, maybe, let's say that, in geometry. And so you learn to understand how fractions connect in different types of mathematics that you do, right? And then you get to application where you're saying, wow, where does this exist in the real world? How can I put this together in a scenario type of problem and be able to create some type of equation and solve things from it? So I just leave you to say with this picture, math is practice. And if you're not a natural at it, that means you have to practice every single day. If you're natural at it, maybe you can go a day or two without practicing, but most of the time you want to practice every single day. So don't forget, parents, our online resources. You can always go to duvalschools.org, and right in the middle of the page, you'll see this little blue strip here. Always like to look at the school board, of course, because we have the school board meetings there. Some parents attend those. And OneView is still located here. And so when you go to OneView, you're definitely able to log in to the student portal to focus. It's also on this blue strip here, blended learning as well. Blended learning is so very important because it is how your students get to their core or supplemental programs for all of our academic areas for English, math, science, and social studies. But so very important. And this is not just a resource for kids. When you go here, they have a lot of resources for parents as well. So don't forget, our help desk is open. I always like to tell our parents this. Laptops now are in many of our youngsters' hands. So if they need support, definitely call into our service desk in order to help them out with that. Now, some of the programs, of course, that we're using this year for middle school, just as a reminder, I taught about Study Island just a little bit, but Study Island, it's a research-based supplemental program, and it provides about 20 to 30 questions per standard that they're working on. Teacher, it's really up to their discretion on how many questions that they can assign the students, but it supports the continuation of the lesson that they learn in the classroom, in the core classroom. So our core text is into math for HMH into math. And then some of our students, depending upon how they perform on the growth measure, will have another intensive math class, which is called Math 180. And that is working on the building blocks in order to ensure that your child is algebra ready when it's time for them to take that course. Again, this is the Algebra Nation. This is the app itself. You can get this on the phone, which is really, really good. You can get 6th, 7th, 8th algebra onboarding. It's a whole bunch of different things there. But this is also available in blended learning. And then we also have Accoletics, which is helping to practice both gap as well as on grade level support for our students. So a lot of support there, just being able to figure out which one to use in order to assist you. Here's some resources available at your fingertips. You can always go to Florida Department of Education just to check out anything that's changing educational wise in the state of Florida. And floridastudents.org provides some tutorials for your students. And PSAT practice, and PSAT has passed now, but you can still go to Khan Academy in order to get your SAT practice. And I always tell parents, start early if you can. Your student may not take SAT until 10th grade, but there's nothing stopping them from taking it ninth grade. So just start early and practice those skills. The PSAT, they will see PSAT. If they haven't seen it eighth grade, obviously they take it eighth grade, they'll see it ninth grade, they see it 10th, and then 11th is national merit. So I always like to give parents this so they can start early and take the time to practice, and it's not a rush thing. All right, I talked a lot. So listen, I definitely want to thank you for attending. I'm going to open the floor for any questions that you may have. Our K-12 Mathematics Director is Jasmine Walker. It's our email address, and I am the Secondary Supervisor, 6 to 12. So definitely reach out to us if you have any questions. We'll gladly help you out. I'm going to open the floor to any questions that you may have that is specific to your child.
Alrighty, well, if you guys don't have any questions, we're going to go ahead and say good night.